It's been 14 years since YouTuber Chris Crocker posted this soon-to-be viral video.
Leave Britney alone!
And now Britney Spears' legal team is calling on a judge to force her father to do just that. After more than a decade with him in charge of all of her financial decisions and most of her personal ones, too. In case you've been living under a rock, the iconic pop star has been under a conservatorship since 2008. Now, that's a legal protective arrangement in which a court appoints a conservator to make decisions on behalf of a conservatee. They're typically created to care for elderly people who've become unable to care for themselves. But in 2008, after Britney had a series of stays in mental health treatment facilities, her father, Jamie Spears, petitioned a court to create the arrangement. From then on, he oversaw virtually every aspect of her life, from where she lived and when she saw her kids, to the medication she took, and of course, where and when she worked. Not to mention how she spent her fortune, thousands of which went to him every month as a salary for his conservator role. That is, until 2 years ago, when Britney canceled an upcoming Las Vegas residency, went on hiatus, and a few months later accused her father of getting violent with one of her kids. Now, at the same time, many Britney fans were questioning the conservatorship online, using the hashtag #FreeBritney. After all that, Jamie Spears relinquished control of her personal decisions to an attorney, though he still maintains control over her finances. Since then, Britney has been fighting to end her conservatorship altogether, and in the meantime, remove her father from the case. Now, the story's also been the subject of a New York Times documentary and a rare bipartisan bill in Congress, too, targeting the kind of conservatorship abuse lawmakers believe is going on, which is happening in her case. Not to mention millions of hashtag #FreeBritney tweets, 500,000 of which went out in just 24 hours after she recently testified on her own behalf, telling a Los Angeles judge she's been, quote, in shock and is traumatized and just wants her life back. While she's had many legal losses over the years, with the legal system siding with her father over her, last week a judge declared Britney fit to hire her own attorney, who is now fighting to remove Jamie Spears from the conservatorship immediately. Now, joining me to discuss all of this are Jonathan Martinis, Senior Director and Law and Policy at the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University, which focuses on disability rights. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
And Mara Dolan, an attorney, co-founder of the Left of Center Political Defense Team and a Free Britney activist. Mara, I have to start by apologizing to you because you have been talking to me for years about this Britney Spears case, and I have not been paying attention. And I feel terrible because I respect you so much. But I want to also know what did you see that I didn't see that caused you to be an early activist?
Well, I respect you so much. And so I don't want to paint you with a broad brush of the questions that I have about why now everyone's on board the Free Britney movement, but why did it take them so long? And I know I've been on board a while, as you say, and I remember distinctly last summer tweeting, where are the civil libertarians? Where are the feminists? Now, I know that you're not like this, Sue, but I think a lot of it had to do with sexism, attitudes towards women, attitudes toward women who look a certain way, right? If you're a sexy blonde, you're ditzy, you're probably a little bit cuckoo. So they just didn't take her seriously, even though what was happening was absolutely horrific.
You know, part of my bias with it is I used to work in the entertainment business, and I actually worked with young artists, and they're so mature to me in a weird way, which I now see is not true, right? They're still the age that they are. And that I felt like she was making money and she was working, so things were well. And I got to say, Jonathan, that's the part that I missed most, I think, egregiously. The fact that she was working and she's in this conservatorship should have been a signal to people that maybe she doesn't need to be in the conservatorship.
I think there's so many warning signs. And I want to flag one of the biggest ones. And it's that you said that Britney had a big victory last week. And I think we need to look at Britney's victory in a larger context, because the biggest warning sign I can think of is that we are calling that a big victory, because after 13 years, Britney Spears has the right to hire her own attorney. And I want you to think about what that means, because if 13 years ago, Britney Spears killed someone with an axe, if she was an axe murderer 13 years ago, she could have hired her own attorney then. So what we are celebrating this week is that after 13 years, Britney Spears finally has the same rights as an axe murderer. And that is where the greater concern is beyond Britney Spears, because there are hundreds of thousands of people right now who don't have the same rights as an axe murderer. And Britney Spears is finally shining a light on the concerns that so many others have raised before.
Yeah, I mean, everyone talks about the gossipy Hollywood side of this, but the reality is if someone like Britney Spears can be in this position, there must be many more people without her privilege, without her money, who are in similar situations. And Jonathan, I'm just wondering, I imagine this idea was set up with good intentions, but now it seems like it's just many people could just abuse it and take tons of money. Again, we don't know what mental health crisis, what the diagnosis is for Britney Spears. It may have been necessary at some point that she be in this position, as it is for many others. But what happened here? How did we go from maybe something, I might be wrong that it was a good idea, but what happened?
You know, with regard to good intentions, I always think about a Supreme Court case where almost 100 years ago, the Supreme Court said the greatest dangers to liberty lie in people of zeal who are well-meaning but not understanding. So when we have the best of intentions is when we have to be the most careful. When we think that we're doing the right thing and have absolute power, because that's what conservatorship is, really. It's absolute power over another. And in this case, Mr. Spears and later others had absolute power over her life, where she went, what she did, when she worked, and according to the stories, whether she used birth control. And even when we have the best of intentions and we think we're doing the right thing, that's when things can get very dangerous because we're not considering what the person wants or what the person can do.
Mara, let's talk a little bit about consent. You know, you and I are about the same age, and I know that it's sometimes difficult to manage young people's consent. You know, you want to call girls who are at 16 or 17 or 18 young women, but at the same time, you don't want to expect that they have the same level of competency to consent to things. Many times in Britney's career, people have said, well, she agreed to it. She said she wanted to dress like that. She said she wanted to do like that. And normally we wouldn't allow our teenage daughters to leave the house dressed like that, but somehow, because she was a professional, it counted. How do we, as a society, balance giving young people the competency and the respect that they deserve, like these young athletes who are in the Olympics, but at the same time building a world that protects them from being taken advantage of?
Well, I think clearly the law here did not serve Britney Spears well. I mean, the really big question is, how did Jamie Spears, maybe he could get appointed as conservator, but how did he stay appointed for so long and be in a position to deny her consent? Her artistic freedom was taken away. Her freedom of speech was taken away. Her control over healthcare decisions was taken away. So ultimately, I think that comes down to responsible adults being responsible adults. And when they're not going to do that, the law has to step up and do a much better job. That he's stayed conservator as long as he has is inexcusable and clearly a failure of the law.
I want to bring to your attention, Jonathan, one of part of Britney Spears' testimony that she gave in court. And it says, I felt drunk. I couldn't even stick up for myself. I couldn't even have a conversation with my mom or dad about anything. I told them I was scared, and they had 6 different nurses come to my home to monitor me while I was on this medication that I didn't want to be on to begin with. You know, this is also the trap of being in a medical emergency, whether it be mental health or physical. They give you drugs and then ask you to make decisions for yourself and then say whatever decision you make is going to stick, and then we're going to bring people in to oversee that. Is there any progress or looking at this? I mean, it's whenever we go in for a procedure, they tell us not to sign any papers, right? And then they ask us to sign papers on our way out that we receive the information. Are people looking at this as a place to put in more structure?
I hope. Certainly there are programs and projects out there that talk about advanced planning. I work with a model called supported decision making. That's all about giving people information on the front end so that they can have what they need and know who they can speak with when they need information to make a decision, perhaps when they're not at their best. Or creating advanced planning documents like powers of attorney or advanced directives, which say, should I not be in a position to give consent, these are the things that work for me. These are the things that don't work for me, so that they have a say in their care at times when they may not be able to communicate their preferences. There's another issue here, though, when you look at Britney's statement, and that's the way that we don't think about basic rights for people. I ask people all the time, I do a lot of speaking, and one of the questions I ask that sounds silly is, what's your favorite right? What is the right that makes you feel the proudest to be an American? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of elections. They all come down to choice. Without choice, we don't have rights. So in a situation like this, where Britney can say, no one listened to me, I felt drunk and no one would pay attention to me, the most basic right we have, the right to make choices, was taken away. And without that, are we even Americans? The most American thing we do is insist upon choosing our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unless you're a person with disabilities, unless you're someone society decides isn't worthy of it.
Mara, can you imagine this happening to a male celebrity? I mean, you know, I can list at least 5 who I know personally who make lots of money and spend it in really bad ways and get in bad marriages and, you know, walk down the middle of Las Vegas and do all kinds of crazy things. And we talk about how charming and funny and eccentric they are. But Britney's not allowed, it seems, to spend her money and make the bad decisions that she has the right to do, whether we agree with them or not.
No, I don't believe this would have happened to a male celebrity. And I think that, you know, this happened because she was vulnerable and she didn't have folks taking care of her who should have been taking care of her. The court did not advocate for her. Why she was ever not why she's gone as long as she has without the ability to select her own attorney, particularly given that the attorney who was chosen for her never advised her of her right to petition to end the conservatorship. But yeah, we're talking about one of the most gifted performers of our time, one who's extraordinarily talented and extraordinarily hardworking. She should be rewarded and celebrated and cherished for that. And look what has happened to her.
Jonathan, what's the reaction been in the legal community and in the disability rights community? Are people finally saying, listen, finally people are paying attention to this and we hope, cautiously optimistic, that there'll be change? Or is it just like, we're worried that the focus is on Britney, and when that gets resolved, we'll be on our own again?
Well, first, the saddest reaction is what has happened to Britney is shocking, but no one is shocked. I have seen situations very much like hers, people I work with in several states who just aren't pop stars. So a lot of people are saying, when Britney says, I want my rights back, a lot of people said, I do too. But that's a source of hope, though. Because Britney Spears is shining a light on the problem. She is indicating that there are things that we can and should do better. So what I've been focusing on is this, is that Free Britney is an incredibly important movement for our time. But Free Britney is about more than just Britney. We should be saying #free the people. Because once Britney is free, the question has to be, what about everyone else? What about every other Britney? What are we going to do so that there won't be any more Britneys? And that is both a source of hope and a source of fear. Because are people in the media, is the general public going to care after Britney is free? I believe they will. As long as we keep talking about it and as long as we keep shining a light, change can happen and we can do better.
And do you know of any judges and lawyers who are involved in this, who are thinking they're going to see a lot more of these cases come back in front of them and they're going to have more public scrutiny than they've had in the past?
My goodness, I hope so. I did a presentation to a series of judges and got a phone call from a clerk saying I had asked to pull all of the guardianship files in front of him. To me, that's progress. If people are thinking, oh my goodness, we've been doing things one way for so long, and now something has come about that made us question how we're doing things, that's the way we make progress. There's nothing more American than saying we can do better. We have said that repeatedly through our history, and we can do better here, and it's time to do better.
Jonathan Martinis, Mara Dolan, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.